mornings then I sleep a little longer, and often it takes me a while to fall asleep. Yeah, I mean, yesterday we were having seminar for 6 hours or something.
Yes,
so it's quite a few hours a day. I have never, to be honest, I've never seen other preachers giving 6 hours seminar in one day, you know. But what choice do I have? I have to, you know. And you get used to it, and the topic is so familiar for me, right? But maybe we wore them out yesterday, so maybe they were tired today. Let's see. They will come, you think? You're hopeful, are you? They will come. Krishna Paraya, Krishna Pashtaya Vatale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta, Swami Nityanamine. Namaste Saraswate Gauravani Pacharine Nirvashesha Shanyavare Asatyara Shatarine. Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Bhaktavinda Shari Kavaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Bhaktavinda Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jai Gaur Premanande, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Om Agyantimandasya Agyananjala Shalakaya Chakshunmalitam Dena Tasmai Shri Gave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manupastam Sthapitam Yena Bhutane Swayam Upakaramayam Nanatisva Vadantikam Namam Vishnupada Krishna Pista Bhuttali Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Govani Pachayine Nirvishesha Shunivari Pasatari Satarine Vanchakapa Dubhasha Kripa Sinumevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Srivasari Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so to begin with, may I ask you two ladies to move over this side, because we have the men sitting, the ladies sitting over here, the men over there, and maybe come a little closer so I can, in the middle here, nobody wants to sit in front of me or something, you know, it's all empty. And people are sitting in the corners there. Yeah, don't be afraid. Just come and sit here closer. Good, so I can see you all. Good, thank you. Good. Okay, so welcome everybody to our session number 4, which is a very important discussion actually. I hope I haven't worn you out too much yesterday by so many hours of seminar. Sometimes people are not used to such high doses of Krishna consciousness and discussion, and they're suffering a little bit on some overdoses. But I mean, it's just like that. If you want to discuss a topic more deeply, it requires more time. You cannot do that in 1 or 2 hours or something, right? So actually all my courses are put together, they're all 15 hours actually. So what to do? I think some of you were you here yesterday? No, it's the first time you're here today. Okay, better late than never. Actually, this seminar is very systematically building up. So it's a little bit of a shame that you missed the whole beginning, because now we are already towards the end type thing. But I'm sure it nevertheless will give you some insights. And also, I have a website, there's the recordings, and also I think on your whatever Facebook live stream thing there, YouTube channel, so you can even watch them later, because it is a highly relevant topic which actually is asking for implementation. And as Puriji told me yesterday, actually you have already something in place in regards to mentorship, but very often, of course, I have no clue what you're doing. I only heard this yesterday. But often it requires a little bit of fine-tuning to actually make it more effective. And already sometimes the system I'm familiar with, I shared this yesterday, is mainly Ukraine. They have been doing it for 20 years, highly successful. So that's why I'm thinking, why not turn towards a system which is highly successful and simply see what they are doing. And they usually, for example, they never have the mentors, they're not self-appointing. They actually are authorized by somebody else. You know, already that many devotees don't realize that not anybody can just say, so I'm now a mentor here, you know? No. And we will see this today when we discuss the qualities a mentor should have. We realize, oh my God, you know? Sometimes people say, well, we don't even have anybody like this in our community, you know? It's quite high qualifications are required. And of course, at the same time, we don't want to be too idealistic, you know, and so, oh, sorry, we don't have anybody, can't do it. No, we have to work with what we got. But yeah, because it is a very responsible service, actually, it needs to be authorized. Mentors need to be authorized. They're not self-appointed that, oh yeah, I'm a mentor now or something. Because also we want to be careful with people's motivations. Sometimes people have, you know, some material motivations there that they want to have followers and so on, and control over people. This is a very intoxicating thing actually, to control people, you know, more intoxicating than sex life even. Yeah, there you only control one person for your pleasure, but when you control many people for your pleasure, that's much more intoxicating actually. So yeah, so then people can have all kinds of motives and they might just not be so qualified. So that's why a mentor should never be self-appointed. Okay, well, you all have the materials in front of you, right? While I was giving some little introductory words. Let's quickly remember, for those who were here yesterday, what were the three main qualities we have to be eager for shelter? Inquisitiveness, helplessness, and respect. Very good. So it looks like I managed to teach you something here, and you were good students. Okay, so now the foremost discussion here we are having, this is qualities required to be able to give shelter to others. And let us one more time refresh our memory. We mentioned it yesterday. Why is this topic so important? Out of two reasons. It's very important that we know the qualities which a person has to have in order to be able to give shelter. What are the two reasons again? Who remembers? Anybody else apart from you? Yes? So you know who to take shelter from, exactly. So you're not taking shelter of an unqualified person. And what's the second one?
We know what qualities we should cultivate.
Exactly. So we know which qualities we should cultivate, so eventually we can get there to also reach out to others and be a good shelter giver. Because as we said, if this is not taking place, our life is superficial. And we don't want to lead a superficial life forever. So it should be the natural result that we actually get to the stage where we genuinely want to reach out to those in an inferior position, and we want to uplift them, and we want to give shelter and guidance to them. Good. So now, the main and foremost quality, which is like the foundation for everything else, is that we have to be sheltered ourselves. Yes, we can only give something to others which we have ourselves. So we have to have a mentor. It's not enough to say, oh yeah, I've got Srila Prabhupada and the holy name in Prabhupada's books, that's my shelter. No, we have to have a living person, preferably in our community. Yes. Doesn't matter on which level of advancement we are, even Prabhupada disciples, they also need sheltering relationships. We were saying, you know, this is one foremost reason why so many gurus and maharajas could not maintain their position, because they did not have a sheltering relationship. And we were saying Bharat Maharaj is the classic example from the Shastra. He didn't have a mentor when he was out there in the forest with the deer, you know, and he just completely got carried away, even though he was on the level of bhava, which is a very highly elevated level. But even on that level, one can still, you know, one's highly transcendental emotions can transform back to material emotions and material attachments. So no matter on what platform we are, we have to have a mentor. Yes. Before that, there's no talk even about us acting as a mentor. And sometimes ladies ask me, well, is it enough that my husband is my mentor? No, it's not. You know, because we were saying there should not be any managerial, financial, and emotional interest. So husband and wife relationship, any kind of family relationships are strongly influenced by emotions, right? So obviously this is not enough. It is a sheltering relationship, but it's not enough. Otherwise husband and wife happily go off the track together, right? We see that often enough. I mean, that's the ashram where there's a lot of options to go off the track, so many variations. And I mean, let's be clear, if the wife has some issues, how to deal with her husband or something, obviously she can't go to him, she needs somebody else. And the same for the husband. If his wife is giving him a hard time, well, he can't go to her, he has to go somewhere else. So obviously that's not enough, right? So this is the main and foremost thing to start off with, the foundation, that we can at all build something on this foundation and look at other qualifications. That is, that we ourselves have to be sheltered. And I mean, very often devotees, of course, they say, well, but in my community I cannot even see anybody who can give me shelter. And also we think ourselves to be equal because we might have joined at the same time. But even though we might have joined at the same time, still, there's always somebody who is a little stronger in something, somebody who has some qualities which we don't have, right? So, even amongst the Prabhupada disciples, sannyasis, there's also sheltering relationships going on there. I was sharing how Naranja Swami was saying in regards to Radha Swami, he's my Lord and Master. So obviously even on their level they also find shelter amongst each other. And once we get more to the point of actually how to, or maybe I can already throw this in the room now, but we will discuss it more tomorrow, that actually the way we start a mentoring system is that we identify the possible mentors in the community and they meet regularly every week for a Shravanam Kirtanam program. They build their relationships first. That can go on for 6 to 12 months or something before there's any talk about mentorship. They meet. If that's not there, then very easily we have some competitive system of independent leaders with their followers or some political parties and again, in that forum of the possible mentors meeting, there are people who realize that this Sangha gives shelter, And there's a very special sweetness and confidentiality there if you meet amongst, possible mentors, the more, serious, stable devotees who want to play that role, So there you can have a very different discussion than when there's a whole crowd of young devotees there. And it's not a managerial meeting, it's a Shravanam Kirtana meeting. You can read something together and, during the week you read something at home and then one person presents a little 10-minute summary on that. Then there's some question and answer, some kirtan, you can share something in regards to chanting the holy name and encourage each other in chanting more deeply. And so we can study the Bhagavatam together. For many grihastas, the Bhagavatam is hardly part of their life at all, because they don't make it to the Bhagavatam class. I've been here a few mornings, so I saw there's only a handful of people there. And clear, when you have work and kids and all that, you might not have the time. And then often at home you also don't find the time. And the Bhagavatam is nicely on the shelf there, but that's it. So a good thing is just to go through the whole Bhagavatam, to read a chapter or half a chapter per week, and one person gives a little summary, and then there's some discussion. And that stimulates attentive reading, because next week I have my program, and if I want to contribute here, I have to have something to share or to ask or to contribute, otherwise I'm just going to sit there and cannot take part. Right? So that's how we actually start. that we identify the possible persons after discussing this list. You know, it becomes clear who could possibly be in that category, and you just develop your relationships on that level first. And that will already deepen the relationships amongst the seniors. And in some smaller communities in Ukraine, this might only be 2 or 3 couples or something, you know, very small circle. But that can be especially sweet and deep and intimate and personal. And then it happens in one of the person's houses, not here in the big temple room or something, even not upstairs in that room. Now, if you do it in your home, then that's even more personal. You actually really deepen the relationships amongst the leaders, the leading personalities in a community. And that's very beneficial in any case. There's no loss, right? This is Vaishnava social life anyway, that we meet and we discuss the Bhagavatam. And we hear from each other, we inquire from each other, and we reveal our minds and share realizations and, you know. So, and then we will find some shelter there, you know, which we might now not even realize, but then when we actually associate in such a small circle, we will actually see. And I've had that feedback from many devotees in Ukraine, that they say, wow, this program actually gives nourishment and shelter. Yes. Even if it's just 2 or 3 couples meeting. But even that gives nourishment and shelter. Can I ask you to come a little closer? Don't hide there almost behind this thing, you know. This is not meant to hide behind, so but good. Okay. Yes. Where are the leftover handouts? Here, can somebody, whenever somebody gets late, do we have any left? Yes. So could you be in charge of this, that whenever somebody comes late, you quickly get up and you give them the materials, right? So everybody's got the materials, right? Good. Okay. Yeah, so anyway, we'll talk about this tomorrow evening. I hope at least some of you will still come tomorrow night from 7 to 9, because then we start discuss even more in depth about all kinds of practical things. What if this, if that, this, that, how to start, what to do here and there, and so on, you know. And especially if you have already something in place, then there might even be more questions, you know, that you came across some situations which were, yeah, not so easy or whatever, you know. Okay, so we can only give shelter if we have shelter ourselves. That's the first and foremost foundation to everything else. So now this list, some of them are pretty self-explanatory and don't need so much explanation, but some we have to unpack a little bit more. And just to mention it up front, it's not that I made up this list. It's actually coming from Naranja Swami's book, Taking Care of Krishna's Devotees. Some of you might know it. And that list is in there. And I think I have maybe added a couple of little things or clarified it a little bit more. And I think he also did not come up and compile this list, but he got it from Radha Swami's different booklets on the mentoring and sheltering idea. So it comes in the devotee care parampara, so to speak. So just to share that with you, that it's not my speculation here or something. Okay, so the first one here on our list is, should have a nice understanding of the philosophy and practice of Krishna consciousness. So, nice understanding, this does not mean that we have to be really learned, that we have to be a pundit or a good class giver or that. No, not at all. But we simply have to have a nice understanding, you know, of the philosophy, and not only philosophy, but also how to apply it, how to practice it. You know, that has to be there. Otherwise, how can we give guidance to others, right? Yes. But as I said, it's not that we have to memorize so many verses or this and that. That's not required. But we simply have to have a clear and nice understanding. What is this Krishna consciousness all about? And what's the philosophy and what's the practice? Right? Next one is, should have been active within ISKCON for a reasonable length of time, which could mean anything really. And exactly like this it was worded, you know, I took that wording from Swami and Varnaswami. So, yeah, it doesn't mean anything, actually. And I think exactly this is how they were intending to formulate it, because you can't put a certain amount of time on it. You can't say it should be at least 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. No, it's just a very individual thing, because it depends how people apply themselves to the process. So therefore, not possible to put some clear time frame there, right? So it has to be looked at individually in each and every case, whether there have been, you know, enough time in ISKCON, active in ISKCON, or maybe better to wait a little longer or whatever, you know. Yeah, so very, very stretchable and undefined wording. Should be able to give balanced advice according to time, place, and circumstance. So that's, of course, a pretty important one, because spiritual practice is all about that, actually, to get the right balance, right? There's so many little ingredients there in the process of devotional service, and we have to get the balance right. And as we mentioned already yesterday, if we sweep something under the carpet, you know, then we will get a different result. It's like the experiments in the chemistry lab, you know, where everything has to be right, the right amounts, the light, the temperature, and timing and everything, and only if you've got all the details right, you get the right result. And if one thing is a little out, oh well, it doesn't work. I remember these experiments from my school days, you know. So a little bit it is like that in devotional service, actually. If we keep some little ingredients out and we dismiss them, then we get a different result. So, and that's one aspect of having to be able to give balanced advice according to time, place, and circumstance. But also it very clearly means that we have to see where people are at. We cannot try and squeeze everybody through some little hole there. You know, we cannot have a too narrow understanding of what it means to practice devotional service. But we have to be able to pick everybody up wherever they are standing and show them the next step up. And for that, one also has to be a little broad and actually a little liberal, like Prabhupada was. On one hand, liberal, but on the other hand, he did not compromise with the principles. Right? He was very strict. So a good mentor has to have that same mixture of being liberal on one hand and accommodating, but on the other hand also guiding them eventually to a more strict and more powerful practice, right? So one cannot only be liberal, right? Or one cannot only be strict, but needs a good mixture there of both. And it is actually a question of personalism. If we are truly personal and we can understand each and every person's situation and we are their well-wishing friend, then we know what is the next step up, how to encourage the person to move forward, right? So ultimately it is a question of being personal. But if we are not so personal, then we cannot even see where each and every person is at, and we just have our one size fits everybody type thing, our matrix there, which everybody has to fit in, and then that will not be well received and will not be encouraging for devotees. So, and also one question, in order to be able to give a balanced advice according to time, place and circumstance, what do we have to be? Balanced ourselves, exactly. Again, we can't give something to others which we don't have. So we have to be balanced. Our life, our practice has to be balanced. Otherwise, how can we help others to become balanced? Right? Yes. So we have to be balanced. And also another thing is that, let me move this a little bit back so I can lean on the back. And still have the microphone there, yes. Thank you. Another thing is that if a devotee is trained in all fields of... Can you make that a little shorter? Like that, yes, good. Thank you, excellent. Now we are ready here, good. Yeah, please, everybody switch off your mobile phone in case you haven't done that yet. One thing is to give balanced advice, also very helpful if we actually have some experience in all different fields of service, right? And Prabhupada used to emphasize this. This is what the system was in the early days, that we were going through all the different, we were going through the middle type thing, First of all, every unmarried young person was encouraged to join the brahmachari or brahmacharini ashram, and then we were going through all the different departments. The ladies were serving in the pujari room, and then the kitchen, and then book distribution, and then once they initiated, first, second initiation, learning to cook offerings, training on the altar, and bit of preaching, this, that, and same for the boys too. So you had a pretty solid training in Krishna consciousness. And only then devotees were specializing in some fields, right? So if you have some broader training like this is of course very helpful in giving balanced advice, because then you know what it is like to be on the altar or to be in the kitchen or to be on the street distributing books. You have practical experience. And then you can also easier see what maybe a person needs to, enrich in their spiritual practice. That, this person maybe could do with a bit of deity worship there to add a bit of sweetness into their life, and so very, very helpful to have really good experience in all the different aspects of preaching. And I see this in my own life. I've been through the mill. I've been in every department serving there for quite some time. So that gives me a strong foundation of experience now, and it's helpful when we guide devotees. Because sometimes you actually come across this phenomena that people have been around for 20 or 25 years, but they don't even know how to do an arti, you know? Or they don't know how to roll a chapati or something. Yes, yes, I've seen it. Or they've never been on the altar dressing deities. And just to clarify that, deity worship at home is a whole different world than deity worship in the temple. Completely different. At home, Krishna has to accept our schedule when we like it and what we want to eat, you know. But in the temple, we have to accept Krishna's schedule, what he wants. Whole different story, completely different experience. So if people think they know about deity worship from their home worship, they have no clue what it is like there, you know. It's like you're entering a different world when you go on the altar. As soon as you open the door, right, and walk on the altar, it's okay, you know, it's a whole different atmosphere there. Yeah, so at home, we cannot think that, you know, then we know all about deity worship or something. No, whole different experience. And recently somebody in the audience, one Prabhupada disciple, was saying to me, actually Prabhupada wanted the devotees to be expert in one thing and good at all other things. You know? Not just good at one thing and expert at that. But no, we should be able, you know, I mean, prasadam is such an important thing in our preaching, so if we can't cook, we can't even make a khichdi or something, I mean, this is not so solid, you know, yes. Yeah, or we can't lead a kirtan. All right, if we maybe are not much of a singer or something, okay, fine. But, you know, we should try, you know, to learn all these different aspects. And then there's such a variety of different moods and flavors and experiences, you know, it actually adds so much flavor there to our spiritual practice, rather than just being only some IT expert and all we do is the websites and nothing ever else, you know, it's a little narrow, you know. And then obviously we cannot really advise others so much in different challenges they might be meeting in their service or something, you know. And I mean, even our gurus, they've been all through the mill. You know, they were all bhakta leaders and kitchen in charge and head pujari and temple president. They've been all through it, you know. So they have some experience in all these fields of services, you know. So very helpful. But of course, I realize not everybody has that opportunity to be in the ashram. Obviously in the ashram, that's when people learn it the easiest. But even as a family person, you know, once we understand the need for this, then we can make a bit of an endeavor. All right, let me go on the weekends. Let me hope they're a little bit on the altar in the morning or in the evening dressing, pretty simple. You know, let me get some little experience there. Or help to cook an offering for the Lord, or do a bit of book distribution, the Weekend Warriors, you know, we have that program. You know, so even as a Hare Krishna. So even as a family person, you know, we can still get a little bit of taste and experience in all different fields of services, and that will qualify us also to give balanced advice to younger devotees. Let me see if there is any comments or questions just about these points. I usually stop every now and again and see if people have something to ask. Yes, Mataji. That gives me some time to get my water ready here. Oh, that's probably the one with flat batteries or something. I think we had one last
the batteries, night. It's not. Yeah, now it's there.
Okay.
So this is more speaking as a manager. So you were saying that at least once a week come to the temple and do some service. So is it the responsibility of the leader to encourage or wait for, especially second initiated devotees? There are quite a few, but I don't see them coming forward and offering, services on the altar. So should we wait for them to come, or should we approach them?
Well, I was for some short time head pujari myself. I mean, this is a long time ago. This is 30 years ago. But I see the role of the head pujari like the connecting link between the deities and the congregation. Because he is the confidential servant there, and he is the connecting person. So ideally, the head pujari should really have this mood of wanting to connect everybody with the service and be very encouraging, and always, be inviting. Because let's also understand, as a family person, we all have so many things at home, and I don't think we should wait until they step forward, but we should be the one who is encouraging and inspiring. And sometimes people feel a little shy, and especially if they're so-called senior, and then they don't even know how to make the complicated achaman. I mean, when I was on the altar, we didn't even do this, so I don't even know that. I have to read and do it all, So, but that's what it becomes, then for people who have maybe been around a long time, but they haven't learned all these things. So it requires, some gentle, humble, encouraging and inspiring, But ideally, yesterday I mentioned for a community to develop, these are the main two tools, the deities being in the center and mentorship. Those two things really make a community very strong. Only deity worship, not enough. Not enough. I've seen it. I've been to places where they have a fantastic mood around the deities, but the devotees, where are they? They're neglected somehow, and they're not nourished and cared and so on. So no, we should encourage and inspire. And definitely regular pujari meetings are always good tools, where there's some katha, some talk about deities, some stories, something from the Shastra, or something, and then some little managerial thing also, so deity worship needs some constant katha, similar to book distribution, otherwise it easily becomes some routine thing, and it becomes mechanical, and I mean, I know some temples where they only give recommendation for second initiation if devotees also agree to do some service. Yes. And I think that's not a bad idea, because otherwise people just want that, that honor and recognition of being Brahmin, but then they're not acting on that, So that's not a bad idea to say, okay, if you want to get Brahmin, then you also have to act as a Brahmin and do some little Brahminical service, and one of them is puja, Yes.
Thank you. Okay. My second question is about mentors. Typically, we do have a mentor system that our GBC had given us, but very much it's more, what I see is guru-centered, in the sense that certain gurus, they have recognized certain senior disciples who can guide their disciples. But the system pretty much is not accepted. It's not that they don't know, but they know. But if it's some other sannyasi disciples, they don't actively take shelter of local devotees. They're satisfied that they know somebody somewhere else and they're taking guidance, and they think that's okay. So would that system work?
I wouldn't recommend it, because very easily, if we make it guru-centered, then you have all this, you know, the guru cult development there, and this is really what we don't want. You know, then, oh, here's the Radha Swami disciples, and these disciples, and those disciples, and they all have their groups and cliques there, and no, this is very unhealthy, I would say. Very unhealthy. I mean, in Ukraine, we don't have any of this. No, nothing. There it's completely mixed. You know, people of any guru go to any mentorship group. You know?
So how do you prevent, especially this is more regarding the Bhakti Viksha. So if you, and I see this even with my own god brothers, you know, but I've stopped it. But something that I have noticed is, if the Bhakti Viksha facilitator is following us, you know, is a disciple of certain guru, the tendency of the Bhakti Viksha members is to naturally be drawn to that particular guru, and the Bhakti Vikshas become more a guru thing, not so much like a cross-pollination, and that's worrying me, because it shouldn't be that, I feel.
No, it shouldn't. And also, I mean, as I'm saying, I'm not hinting here at anything in your community. I don't know what's going on here, but I've seen it in other communities. If it is guru-based, then there's also some canvassing going on, you know, and some pressure. Oh, you have to come, you know, become a disciple of my guru, and all this kind of thing. Oh, all these things are so unhealthy, and let's be clear, you know, behind that easily is also that motive of having power and control over people, you know. I discussed this in the false ego seminar, you know, how Prabhupada was saying family is extended false ego, my husband, my wife, my children, but, you know, even my guru can also become extended false ego. And because my guru is the best and so special, that's why I am the next best and also so special. Yeah, that's what it's behind it, let's be clear, you know, yeah. And then we just want to get all, you know, more people taking shoulder of my guru, and then I am the senior, so they all have to be at my feet here, and no, this is very unhealthy, completely unhealthy. Yes, and it even has the power to split, you know, a whole community. And I mean, let's be honest, this, you know, there is even a danger there on the global level of ISKCON, that the same thing repeats as in Gaudiya Math, that every guru ends up with their own line there, you know, their own branch. So that's why we don't want to emphasize, you know, each and every guru's family, but no, we are all part of Prabhupada's family, and it's also, you know, connected with a deep understanding of Guru Tattva, that the Diksha Guru is simply connecting us with Prabhupada, nothing else. You know, it doesn't stop with our Diksha Guru, he's the all in all and this whole fanfare there, but no, he's simply the via media to Prabhupada, you know. And so these are all kinds of, you know, neophyte tendencies there. So, and I mean, since you brought up the Bhakti Viksha program, the difference to the Bhakti Viksha program really is that this is more a program geared towards spreading, because there's always this dividing new cells there, you know. And also it doesn't include all devotees, like the temple devotees are not part of a Bhakti Viksha group, the temple president is not part of a Bhakti Viksha group. It is usually for newcomers, to involve them and then spread. And there is this ambition there to have many, many groups, you know. But counselor system is completely different, actually. It's boiling the milk. and the group sticks together as long as possible. And all right, if the group gets just too big, then they have to split into two. And people stay in there lifelong, basically. It's not just 1.5 years until you're through the manual and then you can have your own group or something. So as a mentor, you have to be a much more mature person. Bhakti Vriksha leader, you can become after 1.5 years or something. So that there are differences to it, you know. Even though, I mean, I don't want to minimize the Bhakti Vriksha system. It also has so many good points, you know. It is really spreading and involving newcomers and all that. So we don't want to minimize that. But it is a different emphasis, different, you know, different mood behind it. And definitely to make it guru-orientated is not a good idea. I mean, it's very clear that for the spiritual masters, yes, they realize that they can't give each and every, you know, disciple that same attention. And as we mentioned yesterday, like in a family, a father with 15 kids, the older kids help the younger kids, but yeah, better to not make it disciple-orientated, but in general. And I mean, when we discuss tomorrow exactly a little bit, I already gave some ideas how we started. You know, there already you can avoid these things to happen if all the different possible candidates for mentors, if they meet, no matter what guru they're from, if they build their relationships, you know, then the bridges are built on the top, and then that harmony from the top level filters down through the whole community. But if there's tension on the top level and there's some guru separatism mood there, then that will filter down through the whole community. So it always starts on the top. So that's why it's such an important thing that we start by the possible mentors meeting. Yesterday, when we talked about envy, we discussed that the equal association is the toughest. There, the most subtle forms of envy are coming to the surface. So that's why in this mentorship program, this equal association amongst the mentors is ongoingly continuing. Even once the different mentors accept their mentees and have their programs, still every 2 weeks the mentors meet on a Shravanam Kirtanam program. Not just managerial or difficulties or something, no. Simply shastric based, you know. So that already avoids these kind of things. We'll talk about it more tomorrow. Any other topic? Yes.
I wanted to ask from the perspective of being a mentor or giving shelter. In general, I mean, at least this is my experience that one receives shelter, and at certain point it seems that you are almost like expected to be ready to give shelter, and then once you grow to that, then you don't require as much shelter as you require when you were, you know, being trained. So
you require more shelter, you're saying, or what are you saying?
You require less shelter. I mean, like for example.
No. We said the more weights you carry, the more easily you can be thrown off balance.
But it seems like that's how it's been so far, because...
Well, that's why we have lost so many senior devotees, because of that misconception. Because we see things with mundane eyes. We think, I'm so senior now, I don't need that.
But not necessarily, you know, at least, you know, not necessarily is from that perspective, but the perspective of the system is already expecting you to have a responsible, and now you're ready, go, you need less.
Yes, but that doesn't mean that, no. you're ready to give shelter, but you need even more shelter, so you can give shelter ongoingly.
So we have to change a whole system in our ISKCON
society. No, we simply have to recognize that and add that to the system. That's what I was sharing yesterday when I was in charge of the subcommittee for care for leaders, right? That I was stressing this point, that any leader, any guru, any GBC has to have a mentor. Right? You remember the discussion, we were talking about it. And I was saying how with mundane ears we think, what is this? It means he's not qualified, he's incompetent, he needs a mentor. No, he should want to have one. That's the point. And if he doesn't want, well, then he has to. It's a sign of those aspiring for prema, that they do accept dependence on others. That's what Jiva Goswami told us in our first quote there. Right?
Right.
Yes.
I got it.
So that's our mundane conditioning. That's how deep and subtle this mundane conditioning is. Yeah. And not only in that respect, in so many other respects too. It's so subtle and so deep. And day and night, the mundane conditioning and the spiritual outlook is like day and night. So the point is, when people are getting qualified to be mentors, yeah, at some stage, they should be playing that role, but ongoingly they need shelter even more than before.
Right.
Because they're accepting more responsibility. And very true, this we have not understood, because we think in terms of mundane vision, that we think, oh, now I'm qualified, now I don't need it. But no, it's the other way around. You should want it. You should aspire from it. That's what it means to become das, anudas, anudas, anudas.
So I understand where he's coming from. On a practical level, we do have senior devotees who are mentoring, and they were mentored usually by their gurus when they were young, in their Krishna consciousness. They were mentored by them. So pretty much the culture has been that since you've been here for 20 years and you have been cultivating and you're mentoring, you have the experience. And so what you're suggesting is that maybe those senior devotees may not have others, because our community doesn't have Prabhupada disciples. So we may not have somebody more experienced than us in one sense to mentor us, but the group that you're saying that comes together, they support each other. That's what I'm understanding.
And there you will find that there is some people who are more experienced.
Exactly.
You know, it's not just, only Prabhupada disciples can give us shelter who are senior or something. No.
So that is the group where we naturally, there will be few who are leaders who can again be leaders to those leaders.
Yes.
And that's how you become accountable and you...
See, and if this would be enough that the guru is our mentor, then why have we lost so many devotees? You know, this is the point. It's not enough. Right? Even if we were trained by our guru in the beginning, in the beginning years, 20, 30 years ago, our gurus maybe had less disciples. But now they have more disciples. They have health crisis. How often do we see them? You know? And of course, they are always additionally there also, but we need somebody on a more, you know, otherwise how can the guru see what is really going on? He cannot. He cannot. He cannot see how we are cooperating, how is our sadhana, how is our service mood. He cannot. He doesn't know what's going on.
So a detailed example is the group. I'm sorry, I'm asking this because I'm in the process of setting up it more formally here. Yes. So, and your seminar is helping me with that. So I'm asking these detailed questions.
Actually, to be really honest, because we are a little limited in time, I would so much more prefer to keep this for tomorrow. Otherwise, we're not going to get to it. We are only at the beginning here of our list of qualities. These are all issues we want to address tomorrow. You know? Yes, and I was simply, you know, throwing this a little bit into the room, you know, in regards to mentors have to be sheltered ourselves, that, and there I simply, you know, introduced how we started, you know, but all these details, let's keep that for tomorrow and let's continue, because we've got only a bit more than an hour, you know, or barely an hour, officially to 4 o'clock. There's so many more things coming, you know. So let's park it for tomorrow. So it makes it clear you have to be back tomorrow if you want to hear. Okay, so last one we discussed is should be able to give balanced advice according to time, place, and circumstance. So let's move on. And this actually connects a little bit with the previous one. Should not have the tendency for taking extreme and controversial positions on issues. Should not be a fundamentalist with Kanishta mentality, fanaticism. So obviously if a person has that tendency to take extreme and controversial positions, then the person is not balanced, right? For a start. And very often this is actually also a little connected with a false ego, that usually people who have that tendency to take extreme and controversial positions, they're often very ego-driven. You know, that there's that mood behind it, oh, I am different, my opinion is this, I'm not like everybody else, I have this idea about things. And so you can observe that personalities like that who have that tendency, they're always a bit on some ego trip there, some mission there, which is driven by false ego. So obviously such persons are not such good mentors, because they cultivate the same mood in their mentees, and they also attract those people who have already such tendency also, so leads to difficulties, you know. And I mean, their controversial positions, we can also add that obviously the mentors, they cannot be in opposition to the management, right? So they have to be supportive and you know, on friendly terms. Maybe they don't always have the same opinions, but there has to be some genuine mood of cooperation and support, and not some opposition party there, and then the mentees are pulled back and forwards and all this. So then the mentorship program will not be very supportive and helpful, but it will always cause friction and disturbance and so on, you know. And also, there is I came across a nice definition of fanaticism. That fanaticism means when our enthusiasm is not guided by a higher intelligence than our own. Then we easily become fanatics. And this is because our enthusiasm is not all pure, it's mixed with a good portion of passion and false ego, right? And this false ego inspiration, you know, affects the intelligence, and then we get into this mood, you know, that any good idea we can spoil and poison with fanaticism. You know, let's take book distribution or Harinam. Yeah, they're all very important, very wonderful, but you know, if Harinam, that's it, no need for anything else. 8 hours Harinam, even the temple president, if he or she doesn't go in Harinam every day, he's in Maya, you know, and all this kind of thing, you know. Yeah, I mean, we have these things, you know, yeah, or same with book distribution, you know. What, you're not on book distribution, what is this? And this is what pleases Prabhupada the most, you know. So any good thing, you know, can be spoiled through this false ego again, you know, taking up some good thing and trying, because that service is so glorious, that's why we want to be so glorious. because we take it so seriously, right? Again, even the service becomes like extended false ego, and then we end up with fanaticism, and such persons are not good mentors, obviously, you know. And again, that's why we do all need a mentor, so our enthusiasm is guided by a higher intelligence than our own, right? You know, that we have a mentor who says, it's all right, just take it easy, you know. Yes. Okay, next one is, should be mature and sober. Sober is the opposite of intoxicated. So, you know, we should be mature and steady and serious and not whimsical and or flying in the sky there with all kinds of castles in the sky or something, but mature and sober and steady, you know, and have some steady level of enthusiasm and mood of service and you know. Now, next one is a pretty important one and a compact one. Should demonstrate a good standard of sadhana, etiquette, behavior, and commitment to serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So that needs a little bit of unpacking. Why is a good standard of sadhana so important? Who can explain? Yes? Yes. Yeah, that's the foundation and basis. If we don't have that, we can't stand. It's actually the source of our spiritual strength. So we can make, you know, give balanced advice according to time, place, and circumstance. So we have the spiritual vision on things, right? We get that through our sadhana. And setting a good example is always one of the main and foremost ways how we actually serve other devotees, by being exemplary. We often forget to consider that, you know, that it's not just how I feel like and what I think is important for me or something, but no, we all should feel that duty and responsibility of being exemplary. Because what would Krishna consciousness be without good examples? Good examples inspire everybody to come up to the mark, and you know, we need the practical examples. So by, you know, demonstrating a good standard of sadhana, this inspires and teaches others, not only juniors but equals and seniors also. So it is a pretty important part of devotional practice to set a good example, and especially as a mentor. And I mean, in Chaupadi they even say that one's sadhana should be public, at least to some extent. So we can't just say, oh yeah, I'm doing it all at home and I'm watching the Bhagavatam class over internet every day and all this. But no, actually one should, you know, at least some days attend. And also in Chaupadi they have the system that some mentors, you know, at certain times or maybe every day even of the week, their doors are open and anybody can come and chant japa with them. You know, that people know from 6 to 7:30 my mentor chants and I can go and chant with my mentor. So there's no doubt whether or not my mentor chants or something, I know he chants, you know. Yeah, I mean, you're laughing, but you don't realize how many devotees actually stop chanting 16 rounds. I mean, Ranjan Swami has a website especially for devotees who are initiated and don't chant 16 rounds. And they can submit their sadhana sheet and report to him every day how many rounds they chanted. He's got a special website for that. And I don't think he's the only guru who has so many disciples who stopped chanting. So, you know, we have to keep ourselves above suspicion. So that should be no doubt. Or is that person chanting? Is that person ever hearing any lectures or reading the Bhagavatam or something? But you know, sadhu has no secrets. Our life should be open and should be according to Shastra, and there should be not any hidden corners there or something. So in that point, in that regards, our sadhana should, as far as somehow possible, be visible and public. Right? Yes. And etiquette and behavior should demonstrate a good standard of etiquette and behavior, meaning social conduct, basically. And this is, I mean, of course, this is a whole separate topic in itself, Vaishnava etiquette, but especially in regards to the other gender, we have to be very strict in this. You know, that actually, I hope people don't mind me saying this, even here in America, but there is not that much room for friendship between men and women in Krishna consciousness if they're not my husband, my wife or something, actually. You know, that the motto is that we keep things to the minimum of what's necessary for our service. And not more than that, actually. Because as we know, butter and fire, you know, they're both good, but if they come too close, butter melts. And we've had it in so many variations. So it doesn't matter whether it's saffron butter, or white butter, or old butter, or young butter, or old fire, young fire. Doesn't matter. Butter is butter, fire is fire. Yes. And this has to be emphasized, especially in the Western world. Because out there, there's so much free mixing going on and all this. But it does contaminate the atmosphere. Yes, it does. And there is such thing as subtle sex life. So as soon as we enjoy the attention and company of the other gender, then this is actually subtle sex life. And it will contaminate the atmosphere and it will contaminate our consciousness. And then we can, because in preaching, purity is the force. And if we want to really be an empowered instrument in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, we have to keep our spiritual life, our personal practice pure. And I've seen this in some yatras, you know, in some parts of the world, you know, it's all this, I mean, I have no clue what's going on here. But in Europe, there's some communities where it's a common thing that men and women are hugging each other. But I'm sorry, there's not much room for this in Krishna consciousness. Yes, yes. Hugging, that's what we do in family. That's what family life is all about, to fulfill these emotional needs. And that frees all our other relationships from these emotional needs. That keeps them more pure. So there is no room for people, you know, even if they like each other. As devotees, we have other ways of expressing our affection for each other. And that is actually not to distract each other, not to get in each other's ways. That's how we express our affection. But all this hugging business, there is no room for this. I hope nobody is so disappointed about this. Well, is this a common thing in your community? Are devotees hugging each other or something?
For them, when you don't hug, it's considered extremely cold and rude. And we have a huge Spanish, like we live in a Spanish community. So
it's the same with the French people too, you know, not only hugging but kissing right and left. This, you know, yeah. No, I mean, really, this is how people greet each other, you know? Yes. 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 Yeah, but all right, we are sensitive, but we have to understand that we have to transform, you know? I mean, the German culture is beer and sausages and so many things. So we can't just maintain this forever and think, oh, well, that's my culture or something. So that's our conditioning, our luggage we are carrying. And I mean, in any other serious spiritual path and practice, it's understood that this man-woman relationship is the most distracting one, you know, and in no other path you have a monastery and the nunnery under one roof or something, you know? So I mean, in that way, Prabhupada was pretty liberal, but he also always emphasized that butter and fire has to be kept separate. And I tell you frankly, I've seen so many things, you know, when you travel you see so many things. And I know one couple, for example, where she is 30 years older than he is. 30 years. He's 27, she is 57. Yes. So, and of course they completely block each other, you know, not a good idea. So, but this is just, you know, some examples to illustrate, you know, that, yeah, we can never underestimate this, you know, this butter and fire. Doesn't matter how old the fire is or how young the butter is, whatever, you know, we know the Shastra, even a father is not meant to sit on the same seat like his daughter. That's how strict it is, you know? Yes. And I mean, of course, you know, we have to be sensitive, but then, you know, we do explain people, you know, that in spiritual practice, we simply learn different ways how to show our affection, and that we respect each other, and that we don't want to use each other for this subtle sense gratification, you know? And yeah, and that we simply have to gradually accept a different culture, you know, which is actually empowering and cultivates purity, you know. And I've seen this in communities where this is more liberal and more some hippie type and oh, we love each other all so much and all this hugging going on. Well, then this is the standard, it remains. This is the level if it remains, because then there is just not that purity there to actually uplift people further. Then we just have a whole hippie mood there, and that's what it is, you know? But we don't get any further than this. So, I mean, you know, spiritual culture is very subtle. And we don't even realize the subtleties, you know, of our dealings and so on. How in subtle ways this tendency of somehow enjoying the other gender sneaks in, you know. So a good motto is always to really observe oneself. Like yesterday we were saying, without introspection and honesty we actually cannot really make much progress. So again, you know, good to observe, am I enjoying here this attention of the other gender? Is this sneaking into my dealings? And then, you know, the alarm bells should go off and we should keep, you know, a little more distant and so on. And really keep things to the necessary dealings which are there to preach or to arrange things. And interestingly, if we actually keep it to the necessities for serving, then Lord Chaitanya protects us. It's like on the same principle we find on Sankirtan, when a brahmachari goes on book distribution. So of course he also gives young girls a book, But if he has that mood of simply keeping it to that level of interaction, to actually give that other person a book, then he is protected. And then that person might come to the Sunday program because he gave her an invitation card. So then, of course, he should greet her. He should say, oh, I remember you. It's so nice you came, you know, and should give her a bit of attention. And maybe he's doing it the next time and the third time. But then he will say, let me introduce you to one of the ladies. And then he hands her over to the lady, to the senior Madhuri, and then she takes care of him, of her, right? But if he continues thinking, oh, I met her and I have to take care of her, you know, yeah, then the enjoying spirit enters and then Lord Chaitanya will not protect him. So, but if we keep it to the bare minimum in order to really bring this person to Krishna consciousness, or help this person to do a certain service or whatever, then we have that protection. But as soon as we slightly overstep that line, you know, then, yeah, we can easily fall down. Happens all the time, my God, you know. In the beginning years, we had the understanding that the temple president takes care of the Brahmacharya ashram. And how many times have we had it that, you know, the temple president walks out with some bhaktin and leaves his wife and kids behind, and they run off together. I mean, I know quite a few Prabhupada disciples. Yeah, butter and fire, doesn't matter whether it's Prabhupada butter or Prabhupada fire or what, you know. Yeah, so, you know, yeah, so we have to take this seriously, yes. For our own purity and purity of the atmosphere, you know, and then we can become an empowered tool, you know, in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission. Purity is the force, but if we don't keep our own personal practice pure, you know, we will not be able to actually be an empowered instrument. And I mean, there's so many subtleties there, you know, as an example, like man and woman, if they have a meeting, they should actually not meet alone. There should be a third person present, ideally one of the person's wives or husbands, right? So if that's not there, then anybody else. But the bare minimum is it has to be in an open area or something, not in a closed room. Or the absolute bare minimum is that the door should be open. There is a subtle difference if a man and a woman meet in a room with an open door or with a closed door. You know, it's subtle, but the difference is there. Right? Or, you know, like if a man drives me to the airport or something and there's nobody in the car except me and him, I always sit on the back seat. I don't sit next in front of, you know, in the front seat next to him. I don't. I always sit in the back. And sometimes for, you know, Western-bodied people, this is weird. Oh, why don't you sit in the front? No, I'm sitting in the back. Thank you. You know. Yeah, it's just my habit. I would feel completely uncomfortable to sit in the front, you know. And I mean, sometimes people think it's a sign of advancement that you become less affected by these subtleties. But actually it's the other way around. The more you mature and the more you become purified, the more perceptive you become, the more sensitized you become towards these subtleties. Yes, that's how it is. And, you know, we can compare it with a pair of pants. If the pair of pants is dirty anyway, then a bit more dirty, you won't even notice. It's dirty anyway, right? But if it's completely white and clean, then the tiny little speck of dirt will stand out. You will see it, right? So same thing is there also in our consciousness. The more we become purified, the more just the slightest little impurity we feel it, you know, and we feel it as uncomfortable and disturbing and all that, you know. Yes. Yeah, so it's good to be, you know, to really be mindful of all these etiquettes. I mean, these etiquettes are meant to protect us from so many miserable situations in life. Most of our divorces, actually, very often they start by not following the etiquette properly. You know, that he runs off with his wife's best friend because she was always in the house there and this and that and associating while the wife was out and you know. Or the other way around, you know, she runs off with her husband's best friend, you know. Yes. So very easy, often it starts with some discrepancies and not following the etiquettes properly. Or just recently when I was in Mayapur, there was one devotee in my course who I know for many years. He was one of our first brahmacharis when we started the temple there in former Soviet Union. Meanwhile, he's a grihastha and divorced and this and that. So, and then he was telling me he and another Prabhu were invited for lunch at a Mataji's house, but her husband was in Australia. He wasn't even there. I said to him, forget it, what is this? How can you go to a Mataji's house for lunch and the husband is not there? You know? Maybe for Western-minded person it would be all okay and fine, but no, as Vaishnavas, we don't do that. You know, we don't go to somebody's house for lunch of the other gender when their partner is not at home. I mean, we are not even meant to enter the house. You know, that's the etiquette. If a lady is alone at home and some Prabhu comes to the door, knocking on the door, usually we should invite everybody in. We shouldn't have these conversations over the doorstep there. We should invite the person in, offer them a seat, a glass of water. That's the culture, how to receive somebody, even if it's an uninvited guest. But if the husband is not at home, then she has to say, no, sorry, Prabhu, come back another time, my husband is not here. You know? That's actually the proper etiquette. Yeah, so, I mean, there's so many other things, we don't want to go into details. But it's good to, you know, be mindful that as a mentor, we have to set a good example on this. Yes. And I mean, tomorrow, we will also discuss more the etiquette in mentoring, but just to throw this already into the room, men take shelter of men, women take shelter of women. There's no such thing as a man having a woman as a mentor, or a woman having a man as a mentor. No, sorry. We've had it all. We've had so many problems in these things when we don't follow the proper etiquette. I know one example in Europe, you know, that he was mentoring a lady, she came with her marriage problems to him. So, and then the solution to her marriage problem was that they walked out together. You know, he left his wife and kids, she left her husband and kids. So that was the solution, the mentoring solution, you know. Yeah, so I mean, no need to repeat all these mistakes. You know, or young girls who take a man as a mentor, then before they meet him, they dress up for 2 hours in front of the mirror and all this, you know, and then sometimes they come to me. That's how I get insights into all these things, because a woman gets attached, you know, especially if she's not married and emotionally needy. So then these girls come to me and say, oh, I'm so confused in my mentor, and somehow there's something else there, and I always wish he wasn't married, but unfortunately he's got a wife too, and all this kind of thing, you know. So, hey, what's going on here, you know? So that's why, you know, in Chaupadi and Ukraine, we follow this very strictly. that men are mentoring men, women are mentoring women. This mentorship relationship is too intimate and too much regular on a daily basis. It's a little different for, you know, a shiksha guru, a traveling preacher or something. All right, you know, in 2 days I'll be gone, and, you know, so then all right, one can also give some guidance to the person of the other gender. But that's one difference between shiksha guru and mentor, that mentoring is really on a more regular, ongoing basis. You meet each other very regularly. Whereas, and you know, it's more involved. If the mentee is in a hospital or something, then the mentor has to bring prasadam, or he might have to, or she might have to go to the parents if there's some problem or whatever. So it's a much more involved relationship, right? So that's why we stick to the same gender there, very strictly. But we'll talk about that tomorrow more. So let's quickly look at the third component here of demonstrate a good standard of commitment to serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada. So obviously, you know, a mentor has to have that deep integrity, that deep chastity to Prabhupada and Prabhupada's ISKCON. It cannot be too wishy-washy there, or maybe this Radhakund Babaji or that person or whatever, but he has to be, the mentor has to be really sold out to Prabhupada, completely dedicated, firmly dedicated to serving Prabhupada's mission and nothing else. So it's also a subtle form of truthfulness there, you know, that we really walk our talk, that we don't say one thing and do another thing, and yeah, that we really understand, yes, Prabhupada is the one who saved us, and we owe our life to Prabhupada, and we want to bring all our mentees to Prabhupada's lotus feet and to nobody else, you know. Which doesn't mean that we are not encouraging maybe towards, you know, members of the Gaudiya Math or something. You know, if they're favorable, if they're not inimical, we can also encourage them to, you know, take guidance or something. But we ourselves, we have to be clear that, yes, Prabhupada, I'm part of Prabhupada's family, you know, and I don't want to play around there with this or something, you know. Okay, any questions about this thing? Standard of sadhana, etiquette, behavior, commitment to serving mission of Srila Prabhupada. No, but the broadcasting. And what they are speaking, they will not hear.
Just a clarification to the example that you gave about the devotee in Mayapur who was invited with one Prabhu. So there are two male devotees invited to a dinner in one Mataji's house whose husband was not there.
Yes.
So having two male members invited to one Mataji's, what's the problem there?
No. I mean, how would you feel, you know, if you're in Australia and your husband receives two young ladies for dinner in your house, you know? No. Because, I mean, this is also not really required for actual service. You know, if there is a discussion over service, organizing the Rath Yatra or something, you know, in an office room or something, then of course 2 men and 1 woman is good enough for the etiquette. But to invite a person at home and receive them in your cozy home there, no, as I'm saying, I mean, I learned these things in Bangladesh. A woman is not even meant to ask a man to come inside if her husband is not at home. That's the etiquette. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
No, I'm fine. I'm just trying to understand, because just before that you gave an example that if a woman
That's
has
in meetings. That's in meetings. When we have a meeting in order to organize a service. But if we are just socializing, that's obviously a different mode. Right? One thing is a necessary thing to serve, and the other thing is a socializing in your home. Already the home is a whole different atmosphere than the temple, you know? All right, maybe she can talk to them at the general Sunday feast prasadam, you know, with so many people there in the temple room, official public place, you know. But even there, well, yeah, it has to be seen, you know, whether there's a good enough reason or something. I mean, a strictly practicing devotee would even not do that, really, you know. There's no real need to sit there with two men in the corner or something, especially if they're not some rare guests which you haven't seen for 20 years or something. You know, no real need. People would look, huh? So why are they sitting together, you know? Okay. What to speak of inviting them in your home?
So, and just,
I mean, see, that's exactly the point, that we are so affected and conditioned by this liberal mood around us. You know, that's the whole day and night thing. That what's day to the spiritualist is night to the materialist. So for you, it might sound all really strange, you know, because we are more towards the day of the materialist. We have that program, you know, set here. And we think it's all normal, and all our non-devotee friends are doing it, and we think, oh, well, what's the big deal, you know? Yeah, but in Vaishnava life, you know, because naturally if you're there with two men at home, so there's some joking, some this, that, some casual talks. No room for this if your husband is not there. No. My God.
So there is no scope of any friendship like that? That's
very, very limited. I tell you frankly, extremely limited. I mean, even with things like a birthday present or something, let's say your girlfriend's husband's birthday, the proper etiquette is not to give him the present, but you give it to her. You give it to his wife and say, here, that's a present for your husband for his birthday. That's actually the proper etiquette. Not just to go up to a man, oh, happy birthday, or, you know. Yes, I mean, Chaupadi, they are so strict. Even in regards to arranging services, it all goes through the spouse, if there is a spouse. And if there's no spouse, they don't even talk to each other. You know? That's how they do it in Chaupadi. A woman will never ever talk to a brahmachari. And if she has to have some dealings with a Prabhu, it goes through his wife, or the Prabhu does things with other ladies through the husband. You know, he goes to her husband, and then the husband goes to his wife and says, oh, can you do the aarti tomorrow, you know? That's how it works in Chaupadi. They're so super strict in this. Well, that keeps the atmosphere pure. The more we can invite, you know, some strictness. And of course, we have to make sure we are not fanatic to the other extent that, we are only looking at the feet of a woman, and, you know, that's of course also inappropriate. You know, easily one can become a complete impersonalist in the name of etiquette or something. But anyway, it's a whole big topic. It's a separate seminar actually, so I do want to continue, if you don't mind. Yes? Okay. Next one, which is almost a foundation to all the other ones, should be willing to extend him or herself to help others and have the spirit of sacrifice, should be compassionate and have a genuine and selfless concern for the welfare of devotees. If that is there, we can almost say all other things follow, right? If we really have a genuine and selfless concern for the welfare of other devotees, then we will tighten up in our sadhana, in our etiquette, behavior, commitment, and, you know, because we will just want to be an instrument in order to uplift and care for the devotees, and we will be ready to do anything else, whatever is required, right? So now one thing, the spirit of sacrifice, this also has to be a little bit explained. It actually has to be applied with spiritual intelligence. That we do have to also set our borders, how much we can take, you know, we can't chew off more than we can, no, bite off more than we can chew, you know, and it is not meant that, we are up to 12 o'clock at night every day and counsel this person and no, we have to discriminate whether our time and efforts and energy actually fall on fertile grounds, or whether a person is simply enjoying our attention here. You know, we have the same principle also in preaching and book distribution. You know, sometimes people that they like to talk and talk and talk. They are out in book distribution for a whole hour, and then the person says, "Oh, thank you very much, it was nice talking to you, I'll think about it," you know, and they're not even interested in taking a book, and you just wasted a whole hour there, right? Or similar thing on the Sunday program, we might speak to a person regularly, the same person, but we might realize actually this person is not even so interested to take actually up the process of Krishna consciousness. They just, you know, need somebody to talk to. They're just slowly and they just lap up our attention here, but they're not really applying things. So, and these things that we get so-called sucked in there, that easily happens when we actually have some subtle sense gratification in the whole thing as mentors. You know, like on book distribution, if we enjoy ourselves talking and hearing ourselves talk what we all know, and we like to impress this person there, and so whenever there is some subtle sense gratification from our part, then very easily we overindulge, right? Yes. And similar thing is also going on in mentoring, that if we have some unfulfilled emotional needs there, if we like to feel needed and we like to be the big hero who saves the person and look how I'm sacrificing myself, if we need to have this gratification of being so important for this person, you know, then very easily we sacrifice, in a mundane way actually. Right? You get what I'm saying? And then our sacrifice is not so spiritual and it's not so helpful, and it's just, you know, some subtle sense gratification there going on, you know. So this term of spirit of sacrifice has to be applied with spiritual intelligence, that we know when to sacrifice and when to just say, so I think we've talked enough about this now, so let's just get into action here and do some service, you know. Yes, and not forever, you know, go in circles, talk about the same thing, you know. Yeah, these things easily happen. And as I was saying already previously, devotee care definitely does not mean that we simply run around fixing people's problems, you know. This also, people like to do this who like to feel needed and like that people are dependent on me, they need me so much and I'm gonna do it all for you. But this is not good mentoring. You know, a coach, a life coach is not doing that. He is not running around fixing people's problems. No. He's simply guiding and avoiding that people get into problems in the first place. And if people are in a messy situation, all right, they simply, you know, give some different visions to the situation and help the person to see a clear picture of the whole and make a balanced conclusion and decision here. But the person himself, the mentee, has to take full responsibility for their decision. And they have to go through it and they have to live through the consequences. Otherwise, we cultivate some irresponsibility in people, that they're too lazy to think and use their brain, and they're just, you tell me what to do. You know, so we don't spoon feed people with solutions. That makes them irresponsible. And then people only blame you as a mentor afterwards. They say, my mentor told me to do this. So, and you will get the blame. Yes, so the spirit of sacrifice and that compassionate and genuine selfless concern for the welfare of devotees, this has to be understood in spiritual terms, with spiritual intelligence. And again, that's why we need a mentor, you know, where we sometimes can ask for advice. How would you deal in this situation? And, you know. And also in regards to the etiquette, it is definitely against etiquette to take shelter of juniors, to reveal our problems to juniors. This is often done. But this is really against the etiquette, because it's not a junior's position to give the medicine to us, right? A junior person should not advise and guide a senior. It's completely off. It's out of place for a junior to say, I think you should do it like this and this. No, because then the junior person develops this proud attitude of thinking that he or she knows better and he can advise seniors or something. And if we do this, very often we do this, especially ladies tend to do these things, because we women digest by talking about things and just by uploading our, you know, mental problems there. We tell it all to a young person, you know, we tip the whole bucket of mental garbage over a young person, and then they are all overwhelmed with all this and don't even know what to do with it. And they lose their faith in the process. They think, oh my God, if my senior struggles with such issues, what chance do I have here? You know? And yeah, and they lose respect for the senior person and become over familiar, and yeah, and they cannot give the medicine, they cannot give any solution and guidance. So it's a no-no. We should not reveal our mind to juniors. Even equals, very often we like to do that because, again, we don't want to hear the medicine. We don't want to be corrected. That's why we rather go to an equal or a junior. You know? But then what's the use? You know, then we go to somebody who's got a similar problem, and then he says, oh yeah, I know how you feel, never mind, I've got the same thing, it's not so bad, don't worry. You know, so well, what's the use of that, you know? So we have to go to a senior person who can actually correct us. That's what it means, we said, a sheltering relationship where we want to be corrected. So there's no room for going to somebody who cannot correct us and who is not allowed to correct us, right? Yeah, so good to be clear on that. Any question about that? Yes, Prabhu. Where's the mic? What? Yeah, well, I tell you one thing. Just the other day I was in one community, I won't say where, but they had this habit of during the aarti, that the men were sticking the flower in the woman's face there to smell. And opposite, that the women were going up to the men and getting them to smell. I felt a little angry. It's just a little too close here, Yes, there's subtle things, Why not stick to the etiquette? Why not? Usually in most temples where like Ukraine, they don't even give the flower to the other gender. The men just put it there on a certain spot, on the regular spot, and then the lady goes and picks it up there. Same with the ghee lamp. Because even there, especially when there's unfulfilled needs, when he is not married, she is not married, then even that is a whole exhilarating thing, who to give the ghee lamp to, I remember I was 4 years a brahmacharini, so I remember what it's like. So yeah, these things are so subtle, and that's the power of consciousness. If she is all excited, now I'm going to get the ghee lamp of this brahmachari here, he can feel the vibes, Yeah, that's the power of consciousness. It actually emanates through every pore of the skin, so yeah, actually that's the proper etiquette, Okay, now.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. I have two questions if you have time. The first question is, you mentioned that one should open one's heart with the seniors, and also from yesterday's lecture, you mentioned that one should be associating 60% with the peers, 20% with the juniors, and 20% with the seniors.
Yes.
And from a practical perspective also, we see that sometimes mentors are not available, and oftentimes the peers or the equals are the ones who are easily approachable. So in these, and also if someone wants to express their concerns or problems to the seniors, email sometimes is a very informal or not a proper way to express their problems or concerns. So my question is, in these kind of situations, if the mentors are not available on a personal basis, how do we apply this point of revealing one's mind to the mentors?
A mentor can be available through Skype, email, WhatsApp, whatever. I think that's not an excuse. And of course, it doesn't mean that you can't share anything with, an equal or something, or a junior. But, we should not reveal some serious problems where we actually need some medicine for, some correction, some good advice, There we should, with serious confidential matters, we should not upload them on an unqualified person. That's all. It doesn't mean we can't have any more intimate sharing with anybody else except the mentor or something. That's not what we're saying, right? But the mentor, that's what it means. He should be willing to extend himself and help others and have the spirit of sacrifice. So, being a mentor is not just Saturday from 4 to 6 or something. You actually have to be available to people. As we said, it takes 200 gallons of blood, So one actually has to be in that mood of sacrifice. Yes. That's how I spend my main time of the day, answering emails and talking to people over Skype who want guidance. Often people wonder, what are these traveling preachers doing? They're just only giving a class once a day or something, and what else are they doing all day? Well, that's what they're doing, many of them anyway, to answer emails or connect over Skype with people on the other side of the planet. Yeah?
My second question is just trying to understand the difference between mentor and Siksha Guru. You mentioned...
I would like to leave this for tomorrow because I do want to discuss a couple more things, and strictly speaking we were supposed to finish at 4. And because I'm also giving the Sunday Feast lecture, so I need a little bit of airing my brain in between. But your kirtan only starts at 5, right? So I thought, all right, let's go to 4:30. But let's keep that for tomorrow. And let me just discuss a few more topics here. Just a couple more. Next one is, should be a good listener, able to listen to people she is trying to serve, and be a good communicator. So that's a really important thing. And usually whenever we have more time, I also like to do role plays on that. What it means to be a good listener, what it means to be a bad listener. Because my God, we don't have the time for this, but it is such a common thing that we don't know these tools, you know, of what it means to be a good listener. And as far as I know, Bir Krishna Maharaj was last week here and he gave a seminar on this, right? So these are very valuable tools for mentors, actually. And so often we have this, you know, that senior devotees, somebody knocks on the office door there, and then the person is on the computer. Yes, yes, tell me what's the matter, you know, going on the computer. Yeah, I'm listening, you know, and then, oh, I quickly have to answer this. And, you know, and how will a person feel, you know, when they come to reveal their mind and tell something that's really important to them, and then they don't even get the undivided attention of the person, you know, or the person constantly looking at the watch, you know. So that makes the person feel, oh, actually this person has no time, he's in a rush, he's completely somewhere else with his mind. And, you know, so, yeah, we have to give the person time. I usually, when people come with personal things, I usually schedule 1 hour. You know, and if people need more than that, all right, then let's make another appointment. And in that hour, I don't do anything else. Anything can wait, and that person has my undivided attention, right? So very important. And clear communicator, you know, clearly speaking, not the back way and around the bush and this and that, you know. Yes, those who have the Indian conditioning, they're sometimes, for them, not so easy to clearly communicate, you know. At least the Bengali way is like that, you know, that people don't clearly say, and it's all hidden there. And if you come from a different culture, like Germans, they like to be very straightforward and clear. So, yeah, we have to clearly get across, you know, also understanding that actually everybody hears something different according to their own consciousness. There's no such thing as the objective hearing experience or the objective experience in general. Even here, each and every person hears something completely different according to our mindset, our consciousness. You know, so that's again why we have to be very mindful how we present and where the person is at, and there is also a good portion of intuition involved. Again, I feel it's almost similar like on Sankirtan. If a Sankirtan devotee has that pure and intense desire to be an instrument in Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan mission and just meet the right person who needs the book now, you know, then Krishna uses him as a tool, as an instrument. Similar thing is also there in mentoring, that if we have an intense and pure-hearted desire to actually really help this person, if we don't feel, this person is bothering me and okay, quick, I'm listening to this and just say something and get him out of the door or something. But if we actually have a genuine desire, to actually help this person forward, then Krishna also uses us as a tool, and we get to the right points. So many times I have this, that people come with an issue, but then I'm digging a bit and asking and this and that, and then I get to a whole different problem, and the person thought it's this problem, but that's just a little external detail, but the real problem is somewhere completely else, and I'm the kind of person, I like to get to the roots of things. So I sometimes, come to all different underlying issues which the person didn't even realize and definitely didn't plan to talk about. And people walk out, okay, wow, somehow we talked about that now, and okay, now I understand. So really, Krishna is using us as a tool. And sometimes all kinds of words and advice comes out of our mouth, which Krishna is really putting there on our tongue, really, to use us as an instrument. Because how else is Krishna caring? Through his devotees, And the more pure-hearted and serious our desire is to extend ourselves to devotees and be an instrument in Krishna's plan, then actually Krishna uses us. And this makes it even more exciting, that we can actually feel like Krishna is using us as a tool there, One other serious thing is that we should never take sides on issues or on issues before hearing everybody involved. This is also one thing that is done so often. That, especially ladies taking sides of women, Yes, that as soon as a woman complains about her marriage problem, she immediately takes her side, and he is the demon, and all this, and he's not even a devotee, and you better divorce him. But rather, if we want to get a clear picture, we have to also hear his side. And then that might open up a whole different story, and different angle of vision. We can't just hear one person and pass judgments on the situation. There's so many sides there. Actually, everybody involved has to be heard. Only then we get a clear picture. And that makes it again clear why we should have a local mentor. Because a person who lives far away, how can he, get the clear picture of getting everybody's vision there and. That's also for gurus like that. That's why many gurus put more emphasis on what the mentor reports, because when the disciple says something, strictly speaking, he has to start a whole investigation. He has to ask the temple authorities or the department head, and and until he gets a clear picture of the whole situation. So that's why it is pretty necessary to have at least one local mentor who can actually really do this work. And again, it requires time and sacrifice. You have to sacrifice that time. You have to hear all the different people involved. Sometimes you might have to talk to the wife separately and to the husband with some friend or some third person. And then you get a clear picture, and then you can talk to them together or something, So one has to invest that time and energy to get a proper picture. We can't just jump to conclusions and judgments just by hearing one person, Yes. And also, if we immediately take sides, we actually should not even take sides. We should be impartial. Because as soon as we take sides, we are blocked, actually. We can't really hear and understand the whole scenario. So that's why it's a Brahminical quality of being impartial, you know, to hear this point, to hear that point. And then we see actually, yeah, everybody adds something to the situation. It's never just one person's fault or something. It doesn't matter whether it's a marriage problem or managerial problem. There's always, you know, always several people there required for the tango, you know. There's always more aspects to it. And hang on, there was, yeah. Yeah, and we mentioned already yesterday in connection with the respect that we should never even, you know, get involved in disputes on senior levels, you know. It's not our business. We are not meant to pass judgments there and take sides and, you know, on GBC levels and this, that. It's not our cup of tea, you know. It's not our business to stick our nose in it and discuss and pass judgments and take sides or something, right? Okay, anything for that, about that? Any question? Yes, Prabhu.
Mataji, I'm not sure if this is a right question in this forum. Maybe next week and tomorrow you may answer, but I was just meditating upon revealing ourselves to a senior. So there are many seniors around me. So what is that line I should see or select a person so that, first of all, there should be a trust, I know, but how should I select?
Yeah, let's park it for tomorrow. There's a whole system.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
we'll
you.
talk about that tomorrow. Let's quickly do the last couple. And this is also a really important one. Should be stably situated within his/her own ashram. Only then he can be a mentor. Yes. So, this is already one thing which is for many not so clear, why it is important to be actually situated in one of the ashrams, you know. Each ashram has certain purifying duties, each ashram gives protection. So let me ask you, what can happen, let's say if a man or woman is unmarried, but not in the renounced phase of life, not a brahmachari or not in white or something for the women, and she is or he is a mentor. What can happen then? Huh? Fire and butter? No, they'll only be mentor in the same gender. Of course, these days anything is possible. You know, even two fires and two butters can have all kinds of, you know, interactions. But no, it's not that one. No, but what can be there? Well, the needs, that's the answer. You know, if a person is not stably situated in their ashram, then there are unfulfilled needs. And these unfulfilled needs enter very easily the relationship with a mentee. Right? Like, for example, if a lady is not married, but she's also not stably situated in the renounced phase of life, we women do have more emotional needs. It comes along with a woman's body, just so we can play the role of being mother and caregiver nicely. Otherwise, probably women wouldn't even want to be mothers if they didn't have these emotional needs. So these emotional needs impel women to play that role because somebody has to play it, you know. And if a woman would have a man's nature, she could easily forget that she's got a baby, you know. Isn't it? Because men don't have these emotional needs so much. So in any case, you know, if a woman is unmarried, but she's also not stably situated in the renounced phase of life, there's a good chance that there's unfulfilled emotional needs. And then the mentees become her source of fulfillment. Right? And then very easily some emotional dependence can happen. And then she can easily discourage them from getting married. Because then she knows if they have a husband, then he will fulfill the emotional needs. And they will be less interested to even spend time with her. Alright? So that's why she will want to have them for her own emotional needs there. And then somehow emotional symbiosis can happen there. Right? Because also the young girls, any young girl actually desires a husband, you know, so then she becomes like some substitute there for a husband for them, and then it's some emotional symbiosis there. So this contaminates the whole mentoring relationship, right? So that's why these mentoring relationships should be free from all kinds of unfulfilled needs. And this connects with the next one. The mentor should have healthy and appropriate ways of fulfilling financial, emotional, and managerial needs, and thus never exploit his/her dependents for those needs. Exploit is maybe a little strong. Use. We can also say use. You know? It's a little more mild. Exploit sounds maybe a little too drastic or something. But ultimately that's what it is. You know, if we use a person for our needs there, then we actually, in a subtle way, we exploit that person for our needs. So, and then the whole mentoring relationship is not selfless. Then there is some subtle selfishness there, right? Also in this regard, let's be clear, it's very highly advisable not to involve any kind of financial dealings in that mentoring relationship. Sometimes a mentor might feel when he has a business, he might think, oh yeah, I'm helping my mentee, they can work in my business or something. But then, you know, some other dependence enters, which very easily can clash with this spiritual dependence. Then some other needs come in, and you know, the employer needs the employee, or the employer needs that employment, the employee needs the employment and is dependent like this, and then it just becomes a whole porridge there, a whole khichdi, you know. Yes. So that's why it's very wise to really keep the mentoring relationship free from all these other dependencies, right? Yeah, so we have to be healthily situated in our ashram. So it's and stably, it's not enough to just be married. One can be even married, but still have some unfulfilled emotional needs or some financial needs. You know, I have even seen that when the mentorship, you know, the mentoring couple is really financially struggling, then even that can enter the relationship with the mentee, you know, that they're somehow hoping for donations or this or that, or, you know, yeah, it can become all a little, just impure then, right? So as a rule, you know, and this is actually one of the foremost criteria to even identify possible caregivers, that they have to be stably situated in their own ashram. So that means, you know, an unmarried man cannot be a mentor. Unmarried woman cannot be a mentor unless she is in the renounced phase of life. Even as brahmacharini, there is this unfulfilled need there of having a husband, really. I mean, I think in most parts of the world we recognize these meanwhile. In the early days we didn't know, and we thought, oh yes, my marriage is Maya and the women should just be for all their life in the street distributing books or something. But then we realized, no, those ladies were often immensely suffering when they were 40 or 50 and they felt, oh, now I actually feel I need to be married and all this. So now we in most parts of the world, we realize this is part of Krishna's system. For most ladies, there might be very few exceptions, but for most ladies, it's highly recommended to go through this experience of married life. And I'm speaking for myself. I mean, I'm very grateful that I had this experience, and I learned so much, and I definitely would never ever be where I'm now if I hadn't been married for 10 years, definitely. So, yeah, so unmarried young girl cannot be a mentor. You know, the majority of mentors are stable, solid grihastha couples. And then there can be a couple of renunciates. You know, if a lady, for example, she's a widow or something, or even if she's divorced but she has grown-up children and she's been there, done everything, and all right, she can be a mentor for other ladies in that phase of life, you know, to encourage them to move forward to the renounced phase of life. But otherwise, and of course brahmacharis, take shelter of brahmacharis, we will get into that more tomorrow. But yeah, so the main and foremost, you know, group of mentors is strong, experienced, mature grihastha couples. Yes. And actually I've had, you know, the feedback in some places where these senior grihastha couples, after discussing this list, they were really so encouraged because they had a clear target what to move forward. You know, because often senior grihasthas who've been around 20, 30 years, they feel, well, you know, how can I move forward? How can I contribute? I've been on the altar, I've cooked the Sunday program, I've done it all, you know, so what else is there to do? How can I move forward? How can I contribute? You know, or they feel, oh, everything is done there, I only have time on the weekends and there's already people doing everything, I'm not really needed there. So, and sometimes people complain, I don't feel needed, I don't know how I can contribute. So this is the answer, you know, by becoming a shelter giver, a mentor. This is such an important contribution. And it gives us a clear list how we have to qualify ourselves, what we have to work on to qualify ourselves to actually become a useful instrument there in uplifting the younger devotees. So very, very powerful for some devotees that they realize, wow, this is what I want to do and what I should be doing. And I have to shape up a little bit more, but now I know. Now I have a target, something to work for. You know? Yes. Yes. Okay, 4:30. Yes, I think so. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of suggesting too, because you have to clean away the chairs probably and this and that. So tomorrow from 7 on to 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever it takes, So you can come for 6:30, take your dinner downstairs, and then 7 o'clock we meet here, and to be continued. So please don't miss this final concluding session, because there we will get more into practicalities, and we can maybe see how we can fine-tune, you know, your existing structure there, right? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi. And also one last reminder, if anybody wants to get this book, Spiritual Culture, Krishna's Divine System, highly transformational, insightful. We ran out of books, but you can put your name on the list and give us $10 already up front, and then within 2 weeks you will get it. I will get it sent from Europe. Okay.
Try to take some fruits or something. 6:30 you take soup after your class.
Yes.
Or
No,
when everybody is having dinner upstairs.
What's from 5:30 to 6:30 is the class, and then
And the sadhana upstairs.
no kirtan or anything.
Kirtan will continue till 8 o'clock, but devotees generally everybody will go and take the sadhana.
Upstairs, not downstairs.
No, all the way up, so 3rd floor.
Oh, I haven't even been there. Where?
When you go up the stairs,
What? There's another hall. I didn't know. Oh, when you said upstairs today, I thought in the temple room. Oh, there's another hall up here. Oh, I haven't seen that. I only thought you have this room upstairs. All right. Yeah, no, then if many people go up there, then I will also eat there and then go home.
Mataji,